Okay, so the other day, we got a fresh Dreamworks trailer, and I'll be honest, this is one I wasn't really expecting all that much. For me, it kind of came out of nowhere. Not necessarily due to its content, but simply because how it looks. And so, of course, the film we're going to be talking about today, the trailer we're going to be looking at, is for Dogman. And I'll be honest, I'd never heard of Dogman before, and so after I watched the trailer for the first time, I did have to go and look into what it was. It seemed familiar in its design, but I couldn't quite place it in the moment. And so it turns out that this is a spin-off of the Captain Underpants book series. And thus, this would be a spin-off of the Captain Underpants film that Dreamworks put out in 2017, I think it was. And I'm a bit shocked that they're making this at all, really. The first movie got good reviews, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, by the standards of today's animated films, it wasn't a huge hit. Had a budget of $38 million and a box office gross of $125 million. And that's not bad, and I don't think the movie would have lost money off of that, but it's also hardly setting the world on fire and getting a lot of tickets sold. Although, that does seem to be Dreamworks' MO outside of a big-name franchise, doesn't it? So whether this is a popular book or not, I'm not expecting it to be overly prominent or anything like that, but that being said, that says nothing about the quality of the thing, does it? And at the same time, the trailer has done pretty well for itself now I'm taking a look. As of writing this, it's only been published for 4 or 5 days and yet has 10 million views and is still in the top 10 trending on YouTube. Not too shabby at all. And in the end, I have no stakes in this sort of thing outside of wanting it to be good. So here's hoping it does well for itself and a lot of people go to see it. And so let's take a look at this trailer, shall we? Okay, first things first, having never properly read the books, but having Googled what the designs of the characters are, I have to say, I really enjoy that they've kept super accurate to that. I know they already did that once before with Captain Underpants, but at the same time, I'm so used to studios deciding to change something integral to the original source material that helped it stand out originally. For me, Captain Underpants, the entire charm of the thing, when I was a kid, was the pictures and how goofy they were. And I think that's part of the charm of that film too. It looks like it does in the books. It feels like a graphic novel come to life. And I think the same can easily be said for Dogman from this trailer. I think a lot of nostalgic appeal is going to revolve around how it looks, and thus, them keeping that visual style, it can only be a good thing, as it shows that they actually want to do the story and the world justice. And on top of that, from an audience perspective, I just think that Dreamworks has been doing well, giving us some actual visual variety compared to the largely formulaic style you see from all the other big-name animation studios. Where, when you watch them, it's clear they're all pursuing the same sort of goal and using very similar stylistic choices to have that sensational animation that verges ever closer to reality. Reflections in the eyes, being able to see the different strands of hair, all that sort of thing. But this is different, and not in a bad way. It's unique, and by looking different, it sets itself apart. The only problem is that I do feel like films that experiment with the visual style and move away from the norm, they don't get the same traction as a film that follows the popular style. And so in the end, they end up being less financially successful. I mean, I'd love to be wrong, and even if it only reaches the same level of success as the Captain Underpants movie, I would consider that a triumph. But it would be nice to see Dreamworks have a smash hit too. I really wasn't expecting this into the animation, honestly. It's rather exciting. I was so nervous when I heard that Dreamworks is going to be outsourcing all their animation to different studios after Kung Fu Panda 4, but right now, I'm cautiously optimistic about everything. I mean, hell, a fair chunk of the trailer is straight up action, and it truly looks incredible. I really think that Dreamworks, even though they aren't animating this themselves, they have had some banger action sequences in their last couple of films, which I suspect more than anything is a creative choice they're telling the studios to follow. The Last Wish, Bad Guys, the latest Kung Fu Panda movie. Free-flowing and dynamic action sequences that draw you in. They're colourful, bombastic, and exciting. It's a far cry from the action sequences of my youth. I remember when the Shrek 2 castle invasion was the height of epic when I was a kid, and now look at what we've got. I feel like Into the Spider-Verse is a major reason behind this shift, and I'm very happy for it. And here, the art direction, and especially the action, it makes it feel like more than just an animated film, but a graphic novel brought to life, which I think is very important, and it's going to set the movie up very well. As for the trailer itself, like I said, I don't actually know the story, so my ability to actually make any sort of observations about that is rather limited. But luckily the trailer, it seemed quite self-explanatory in that the dog and the cop were once two people, and after an accident, they're now one person. And it's such a ridiculous, silly premise. I love it. You can really tell it's from the same guy that put Captain Underpants to paper, can't you? But luckily, they did include a little bit of a blurb about the film that dives a bit deeper into the story for us uncultured swine. It reads, when a faithful police dog and his human police officer owner are injured together on a job, a harebrained but life-saving surgery fuses the two of them together, and Dogman is born. Dogman is sworn to protect and serve, and fetch, sit, and roll over. As Dogman embraces his new identity and strives to impress his chief, He must stop the pretty evil plots of feline supervillain Petey the cat. Petey's latest plan is to clone himself, creating the kitten, Lil Petey, to double his ability to do crime stuff. Things get complicated though when Lil Petey forges an unexpected bond with Dogman. When Little Petey falls into the clutches of a common enemy, Dogman and Petey reluctantly join forces in an action-packed race against time to rescue the young kitten. In the process, they discover the power of family and kittens to bring even the most hostile foes together. Now that's funny. And I really like that even here in the blurb, they've sort of kept faithful to the world they're building, instead of just saying it from a professional standpoint. They include the little jokes and the goofy language, and I think it goes a long way to show that they're really dedicated to making this film a success. But yeah, the synopsis is pretty in-depth, and it reveals so much of the actual story that is not in the trailer, which, if you've never read the books or anything and you watch the trailer, it is mostly just setting tone, being goofy and fun, introducing the starting points for the characters, namely who Dogman is, and his role in the tale as the superhero celebrity type figure, showing off his personality and his dynamic with the chief, while simultaneously introducing Petey the cat, but without showing off Lil Petey, his bond with Dogman, or this new villain that's going to bring the two together and force them to work as a team to save the kitten. And I really like that because they're able to craft a really gripping, funny, and exciting trailer without blowing the narrative load too early. A lot of trailers in the last couple of years have shown off all their best bits in the trailer, but here they're keeping the cards close to the chest, and I respect that, and I think it's quite clever. And it also shows there's a lot of depth to the story and the characters because they legitimately just didn't show two of the major characters in the story, and yet the trailer and the story works just fine as it is. Beyond that, I love how childish and goofy the trailer is. It bodes well for the movie for me. So many films you see these days, animated movies that is, they either try to be super deep with lots of hidden meanings, or they cater heavily to the kiddies, and by cater I mean extreme toilet humor and slapstick. And that's fine. Minions humor is all well and good. There's a time and a place for it, and I enjoyed it a lot. But I also feel at some points that this sort of goofiness, it gets lost. The wild and wacky over-the-top personalities, silly verbal jokes and zingers, and at times, absurd moments and random wacky humor. I feel like Dreamworks has always been able to do this kind of film best of any of the studios. The OG Shrek, the OG Kung Fu Panda, that sort of thing, where it clearly is skewing young, but there's stuff for adults, and it doesn't feel overly... I know I used childish as a positive before, and yet I'm using it negatively here, but you know what I mean? It doesn't feel brain dead, it doesn't feel like it's insulting your intelligence with its existence, but it's still goofy and nostalgic and fun. And so ultimately, this is a really good trailer, and I'm really excited by it all. Dreamworks really shouldn't be trying to compete with the style and type of films that Disney and Pixar and whatnot make. They just don't seem to have enough resources to make it happen. But there's a niche here that they can fill, and I think movies like this is exactly what they do need to be making. So let's hope they did it well. It's not a hugely long video today, but I'm not really familiar with the franchise at all, so it is what it is. And so yeah, with all that being said, I'll just remind you these have all been my opinions, and I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the trailer? You like it, hate it, you excited for the film, maybe not? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.